Hello and welcome to another edition of Flashback to the Track. As always, we are presented by Blue Emu for maximum strength relief for your tired muscles and joints in a plethora of options. Whether you want to pack it, stack it, get a box and send it, to your loved ones. Just order that, prime it to them. Ship it. I don't know any other way you can. Just
I might send you some. I got some to spare.
Mark's got so much to spare. He's just flexing right now.
Yeah, he got more up on the shelf. He's heard Alpha shelf.
He's like the Santa for Blue Emu. He's Blue Emu Santa.
Yeah, hit me up. Maybe I'll hook you up. Maybe I won't. We'll see.
What would Blue Emu Santa's catchphrase be? Would it be like? It wouldn't be like ho ho ho. It'd be like. Work fast, don't stink. I don't know, something like that.
So anyway, racing stuff. We this week on the podcast are talking about a very awesome racing series which we've never talked about before, Trans Am. We're going to talk about the myth, the legend that is Trans Am racing. If you're not familiar with Trans Am, you are missing out because it is an awesome racing series. It still exists today. Yeah. But it's taken many different forms.
And, we're not talking about Smokey and the Bandit here. We're not talking about that Trans Am, though that is kind of the series we're looking at, the styles of cars, Mark, because, Trans Am, when I first think of Trans Am, Mark, I think of muscle cars, big
American cars.
American V8s, yeah. It's something unique about this form of racing, You get to see muscle cars kind of racing, They get to turn left and right and be powerful and more than just kind of a cruiser sense. You know what I mean?
They're like real stock cars. They turn they're like cars on the road. They turn left and right. Exactly. And they look like road cars. No big wings on the back. Man, these were awesome cars all throughout their history. So if you're not familiar with Trans Am, don't worry because we're going to give you a brief history of the Trans Am series. And first off, before you ask, the series came before the car. The Pontiac Trans Am. GM actually stole the name from the SCCA, who was the sanctioning body of Trans Am, in 1968. Didn't ask for it, they just took it. Not sure what happened with that, but the Pontiac Trans Am is named after the series. Just like the IROC, James, same thing.
I think Trans Am, if you were in a court and if I was fighting on behalf of GM, I'd be like, well, we technically named it after Trans America. So I don't know. Maybe that fight went on, but it was probably settled at court.
Like Trans America just sues instead.
Yeah, who does sue?
Trans Am is essentially, it's a sports car road racing series that just, like James said before, just showcases the most badass race cars in the world, American muscle cars. And began in 1967. It was founded by the SCCA. And it's taken a bunch of different forms over the years. They've gone from modified road cars to similar IMSA GT cars to turbocharged tube frame factory cars in the 1980s and 90s to the current monster cars they have, Mustangs and Corvettes with huge wings on the back. Essentially what we're trying to say is Trans Am is just straight baller. If you get a chance to go to a Trans Am race, or Trans Am is a support series at a race you're at, go and check this racing out. You'll be able to hear it from 50 miles away. It is so loud and it's so awesome. And you might not know, but so many of our favorite road racing heroes got their start or had stints in Trans Am during their careers. Guys like Tommy Kendall, Willie T. Ribbs, Ron Fellows, Dorsey Schrader, and even friend of the show, Wally Dallenbach Jr. Be sure to check out our episode with Wally. He does talk about Trans Am in that episode. So Trans Am is kind of like the Wild West of professional road racing. I'm pretty sure the rule book, I've heard the rule book is one page and you just build a car and go. And today we're going to look at a race from 1995. And this era of Trans Am was all about Ford versus Chevy. And at this time, it was a legitimate competitor with series like IMSA, and fans came in droves to watch Trans Am. It was a beloved series. Unfortunately, it's just not like that anymore, but hopefully we can get it back to where it was, and getting into some more technical stuff. So Trans Am, they're shorter races. They're usually sprint races around 1 hour. We actually have no clue how long this race is that we're looking at because they don't say how many laps it is and there's no graphics. But you know what? Not important. It's entertaining. Unlike other road racing series, it's just one driver for the whole event. So they don't They don't change, and everybody has enough fuel to make it to the whole race. So pit stops usually only happen if you have a flat tire or you're changing to rain tires or have an issue. They don't really make competitive pit stops during the race.
That's good, because I think that's a form of kind of like cost cutting. You know, you can obviously make this series much more affordable series, because like at this time, they're really competing with IMSA as a premier destination in sports car racing. This is one of the top of the tier series during this time period.
Yeah, and we're going to go into the 1995 season. Now, James, like we rank in our notes, like this season is absolutely stacked.
Yeah, there are so many great competitors during this time period. You got guys like Boris Said, Ron Fellows, Tommy Kendall, Scott Sharp dipping his toes in and out as a Trans Am veteran who was running in the early 90s, Dorsey Schrader, the list just goes on. And, you know, to Mark's point earlier, Ford versus Chevy, really great manufacturer battle, and you have manufacturer support behind that battle, which just intensifies what's already going on from a competition standpoint. These cars are just to 10 tenths. It's insane to see what we're going to watch. Now, the thing about this series was Dorsey Schrader and Ron Fellows had a pretty dominant year throughout the season. They actually had won 9 races between the two of them. And the series went to some pretty awesome tracks. I'm talking Portland, Detroit, Cleveland, Mossport, Theos Rivers, and of course, Sonoma. I mean, Mark, you got street courses, proper circuits. This was an era when you had just one class in Trans Am as well. So you got amazing cars on amazing tracks. This series is just sexy during this time period.
Races. 2. Detroit's pretty much a Canada race too, though. It's like it's on an island in the river between.
And Cleveland's not too far away too, and it's
my cell phone's like connecting to Canadian towers when I'm there, so it's technically like Canada, right? So, and man, 3 Rivers, like Trois Rivières, man, unreal circuit if you've never seen it. The street course, like check out some Pinty's races there or something. They're all online. They're amazing. It's such a sick racetrack. Fortunately, I've never been, but I'm hoping to go once we get back to the way life was before. So, James, why don't you take us into kind of just the overview of this race and kind of what we can expect today?
Well, coming into this race, this is the second to last race in the 1995 Trans Am season. So, Ron Fellows, who's just been on a winning streak, having won 5 of the last 6 races, is trailing Tommy Kendall in the points series. And to this point, Tommy Kendall hasn't won a single race this season, but he's been consistent. He's had at least 8 top 5s throughout the first set of races. And when Ron's been off, Kendall's been on. And you know what? Those points stack up. So consistency is playing in Tommy Kendall's favor at this point. Now, Tommy is driving the number 11 Roush Racing All-Sport Mustang, where Fellows, he's running that number 3 AER Manufacturing Racing Camaro. Classic Chevy versus Camaro. Chevy Camaro versus this Ford Mustang battle. Great battle here. And then also at this time, Trans Am had an interesting way of awarding points. So if you won the pole, you could actually get 5 points. If you led a lap, you could get 1 point. And if you led the most laps, you could get another point. And those points do add up during the season. Now, at the circuit we're running Road Atlanta. And it's a bit different than the Road Atlanta we might see today. This track was just, I would say, just more natural at this time period, more open.
More agricultural, for sure.
Yes, for sure. You could definitely notice the hillsides. But the biggest thing is we don't have that whole send it section with turns 12 involved that we kind of see today. It's a much more flowy section as it just dips down the hill and then quick kink left to right, and you're back through that tunnel and back down the hill towards the start finish line. So it's really interesting. And according to David Hobbs, it's the most difficult and technical track on the circuit. In fact, it's probably one of the most difficult and technical tracks in North America. And I have to agree with the elevation changes that these drivers will go through. It's going to take a lot to stay on the track And this track, Mark, is not very dry, to say the least. And of course, Roush Racing at this time has 2 cars in the field, and they're both sponsored by different beverages. You got All Sport for your athletic type versus Mountain Dew for people who drink Mountain Dew at this time. I don't know. I don't think gamers were their marketing choice in 1995. So Mountain Dew drinkers.
Mountain Dew's delicious.
It's like bad candy, man. You can't have one Mountain Dew. You always just end up having like 2. So you try to stay away from that.
I've never had All Sport. They don't sell it in Canada. Never had it. Does it still exist? I remember Jeremy Mayfield was sponsored by it in like 2009.
I remember that too. I don't know. I've never seen it like really.
And Big Red. I've seen Big Red a bunch of times. Never tried it. So
I've had Big Red before, and that was bad. And then I thought that was cherry wine, but
there goes our sponsorship from Big Red. So
sorry, Big Red. I got to be honest.
You have to say everything's great. Everything is great. Okay, but anyway, Road Atlanta. One quick bone to pick. 12 turns. Half those turns are not turns. When you're going straight and you slightly veer to the left, it's not a turn. I'm sorry.
Well, so to your point, should that just be considered a kink?
Yeah, but they call it a turn. It's like so there's turn 7, which is the hairpin at the end of the track, and when you come back, like you're basically driving straight the entire way. But there's like two turns in there. They're like turn 8, turn 9. I'm like, those aren't turns, but whatever. I digress. James, take us into the broadcast. We have an interesting broadcast partner for this Trans Am event.
For this broadcast, we have Prime Sports Network, which seems like a southeastern affiliate or broadcast nation for sports. I don't know, Mark, you said it was the South's destination for sports or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know. But anyways, we do have a nice broadcast that's going to be presented. In the booth, we have Bill Adams, joined by legendary David Hobbs. Man, this is going to be a great broadcast. Anytime you have David Hobbs in the booth, it's always a special broadcast. In the paddock, giving us everything from pit road, is Chris McClure. And then we do have an in-race reporter, Mark, Bryce Cobbs. I don't know if it's a privilege or just a nuisance to be an in-race reporter, Mark, because sometimes you're kind of distracted with the questions that come at you, and they feel like they come at you randomly. But then again, it's always good to be on TV.
Well, I think with Trans Am, like normally, like in NASCAR, they would just call down to a guy and talk to him. I think Price was like the only guy they had a radio in the car where they could talk to him, so they just set it up beforehand. Also, interesting thing about this broadcast is there's no in-car cameras.
Yeah, no,
and it's a bummer, man, because you're like, I want to see in-cars from these things, but I guess just the production budget didn't allow for it.
Actually, it wasn't the production budget. They do state in the broadcast it was because of the inclement weather. They could not put the onboard systems into the few cars that they would, so that they could provide onboard pictures. So, darn weather, but oh well, man.
That's a perfect segue, James. We got to go into strange starters.
Ooh, but we don't really know Trans Am, Mark. We'll be honest. So we can't really say these guys are strange, but we did learn some interesting things about them. So most people would think we're strange because we like to know this knowledge. So maybe that's why we put these guys in here. So I'll lead it off. We'll have, first off, Brian Till. He's going to drive the number 9 Raul Group Camaro for Greg Peckett Racing. Okay, now he drove in select kart races, which was basically IndyCar at the time in the early 90s, with the best finish of 9th at Cleveland in 1993. Now, you might know that name because he is the longtime broadcaster from ALMS, Grand Am, and currently working at NBC Sports, covering IMSA. So, Brian, great to see you behind the wheel. Let's see how he does in this event.
And next up, we have Who Said?
Who said?
Boris said. That's right. Boris said. Anytime Boris said is in any race of any kind, I'm here for it. So he's driving the number 4 Surefine Mustang for Tom Gloy Racing. And this is really back before the Boris that we know and love. This is when really like his pro racing career was just kind of starting. He got out, he was a very late bloomer when it came to racing, didn't start until he was in his early 20s. So he did win a race that year at Road America, but unfortunately he was right there in the thick of the championship fight, but he had to miss some races because his team ran out of sponsorship, but got Surefine on. They found a new sponsor, And they keep joking during the broadcast about how many different paint jobs he's had with all the different sponsors he's had. But hey, got to pay those bills so you can get to the racetrack.
Exactly. You got to make money before you can start to spend it. Next up, we have Brian Simo. He's going to be driving the number 22 Valvoline Mustang for Tom Galloy Racing. He's a California road racer. I didn't know this, Mark, but fun fact, he's the owner of No Fear clothing outlet. Now, I've always noticed the No Fear brand all over a lot of places. I actually used to consume those energy drinks as a kid because I wanted, Boris said, to keep racing. So
sell more cases, run
more races. Oh man, Boris. Anyways, so that was always funny. I never really drew the comparison, but now it all makes sense. But he's been racing throughout the mid 90s, and he actually won the 2000 Trans Am Championship. And fun fact that Mark and I both love to spout, he finished 5th in a Cup Series race in 2005 at Sonoma, driving for RCR. Mark vividly remembers exactly which car he was driving.
Well, I actually vividly remember it wasn't 5th. I think it was 10th.
Oh, it was 10th?
But he did get a top 10 finish.
I mean, he was running top 5 at one point. I remember that's when he gave him a shout out. That's what I remember.
Yeah. That's a good race. Check out that 2005 Sonoma race, Cup Series. Good race.
Yes, what a good one. Just as good as this one, Mark.
This is a great race. Next up, we have Jerry Simmons from just down the road from me in Ancaster, Ontario, Canada. Ancaster is like the expensive, nice part of Hamilton, Ontario. So he's known as the perennial amateur because this is back when a time, there was no driver rankings. This is when everyone had to race the same series. There was no separate classes. If you were an amateur guy and you wanted to pay your money and go race, you had to race against big boys. So he was racing against factory teams with his own team, number 76 True North racing car. But, Jerry Simmons. Don't know a lot about him, but had to give him a shout out.
Right on. Next up, we have Scott Sharp. He's driving the number 6 Rain-X Camaro. And this is for Pickett Racing. Now, Scott's only going to make 4 starts in 1995 during the Trans Am season. In fact, this is his 4th and final start. He had a best finish of 7th. And that was the Raceway at Belle Isle. And that was like race 1 for him. So he's got to pick it up. But a highlight for his 1995 season was when he led 40 laps to the Indianapolis 500, driving that Copenhagen car.
And as we all know, Scott Sharp goes on to be a champion of IndyCar and a great, amazing sports car racer. So cool to see Scott Sharp doing some time in Trans Am. Finally, we have Tony Ave, and this is Tony's first season running Trans Am and some select races. If you know anything about Tony, he is kind of like a Trans Am legend now. He's been in the series a lot. He's done all kinds of road racing. He's done some USAC midget racing, all kinds of different stuff. Did open wheel with Toyota Atlantic. And he is a multi-time Trans Am champion now, winning all of his championships in the 2010s. So Tony Ave owns a lot of cars as well in this series, so has quite a large team. James, let's go into our pre-race notes.
That's right. Now, coming into this race, specifically at Road Atlanta, no Trans Am driver had been a repeat winner. No one had won at Road Atlanta more than once. So we could have another first-time winner, or we could have a repeat winner. We'll see. Scott Sharp is our pole sitter, and Bill Saunders will be starting on the outside of him, and I'll be rounding out the front row. And we kind of alluded to this, Mark. Now,
yeah.
I don't know how wet you would say this track is, but I'd say we've sort of lost the track here.
It looks kind of dry, but kind of wet. So it's kind of like, what do we do? Do we go with slicks? Do we go with rains? There's no intermediates, so you have to make a choice. There's a couple of puddles in a few spots, but they're off the racing line. So I don't think we're going to declare the track wet. I think we're going to have a dry start, and you're just going to have to go a little easy the first few laps and go on slicks. Before we go green, though, let's get some insights from our in-race reporter, Price Cobb, during the pace laps.
Yeah, David, how you doing? Well, I'm doing fine. What does the track look like to you? I can see it's pretty damp in a couple of spots, but otherwise not too bad. Yeah, honestly, it looks like on the line, except
up so far through just the apex of turn 1, we've got a dry line, Dave. The difficulty for all of us, though, is that I think there's only one car, if any, that have anything but brand new tires. It'll be tough to get them up on the first lap.
Now, Bryce, you didn't qualify very well. The weather was all messed up over the weekend. You're back in 14th spot. It's going to be a bit of a struggle to get to the front, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd like to think not, but I'd hazard a guess you're right. I'll just have to be real aggressive.
Well, he can temper aggression with experience. Price, one of the most experienced drivers in this field, has had victories in virtually every type of car imaginable. So you couldn't put a better driver in that car right now.
Wow, thanks for that, Price. I think we're ready to pretty much go racing here. But before we can even get going, Tony Ave is off track in the grass. So I guess it is pretty wet. Unfortunately, Tony's going to be plagued by mechanical issues all day. But this is just the beginning for him. So he's in the grass. They get him out of there, and we're ready to go green. And we get the green flag, but we don't get the green flag because they waved off the start because Scott Sharp jumped the start. So rather than penalize him, they just throw the yellow flag and we try again. So they try again. This time he gets it right, gets a good start. We actually get our green flag. He's got him through the first few turns, but Dorsey Schrader, man, he's already on the move. He takes the lead before the end of the first green flag lap. And then Ron Fellows and his teammate Jamie Gallus both slipped by Sharp to take over second and third. James, you said Sharp had to pick it up. He won the pole, and he's back to fourth by the end of the second lap.
Hey,
so,
he can set a lap, but I don't know. This is only his fourth Trans Am start, so the field is obviously eating him up as we're just getting underway. It's been an exciting first couple of laps, Mark, but we got to pay the bills, so we'll be right back from this commercial break.
Hey everybody, do you ever have like tired muscles like this one right here? I've been working out a little bit, and just some aching joints, after a long day of activity, doing those chin-ups and riding your bike? If so, our friends at Blue Emu have you covered with a wide variety of maximum strength products that work fast and are completely odorless. That's right, you won't stink. Be sure to check out Blue Emu in its brand new look at major retailers near you. For maximum strength relief, gotta go with Blue Emu. Now let's get back to the podcast.
And we're back to racing. Ron Fellows, he's going to make a move on Dorsey Schrader for the lead. And now we're seeing those raindrops from the cameras. They're starting to bead off these cars. Oh man, windshield wipers are going to be a premium to have those on. Dorsey Schrader was earlier distracted by his because it was flickering on and off. I don't know, Mark. I think that's working to his advantage now because he's wicking away whatever's popping up onto his screen.
Yeah, meanwhile, Ron Fellows' teammate Jamie Gallus, man. I don't know anything with Jamie Gallus, but he's fast. He's up to second place, but the rain is starting to get heavier. All the wipers are going. Man, do you make that call to come in for rain tires now? Let's check in with Dorsey Schrader's crew chief, Rick Pennington, for some insight on that decision.
The crew getting out the rain tires. Rick, is he saying anything? Is the track going away dramatically?
He just said the track's getting a little slick, and we're just going to wait till see if they throw a red flag. We're not going to come in unless they do. We're running real well right now, so I'd like to stay there.
What if the leaders were to come in? Would you follow them at that point, and if they made the decision first?
I think we'd still hold out for red flag. Just have to wait and see on that one.
Okay, mind games, tactics being played out in the pits right now, but the track's going away. It's raining harder, guys. David, what would you...
So, James, it looks like everyone wants to wait until there's a red flag, and look at that. Just a few laps later, we get our red flag, and everyone gets 15 minutes to change over to wet tires, get their wiper going. They're even allowed to change their windshield if they want to something that's treated to have the rain beat off of it. Just go see Scott Sharp's team, get some Rain-X from them. I'm sure they have some they can give away. And everyone gets to reset. Again, keep costs low. Don't have competitive pit stops. Make it fair for everyone. You maintain your spot, change your tires, and go back out and have a race. And now the track is soaking wet. But we're going to have a chance to now check in with our championship leader, Tommy Kendall.
Crews continue the tire changes here, putting on the reins. We're with Tommy Kendall, who came in the fourth position in the race. Obviously, conditions changing, but tell me about your race car. You got a good steed under you?
I think we do. You know, the Roush car felt good in the dry, and it's always been good in the wet. So sitting behind that pace car for all those laps was frustrating, and I'm sure the fans want us to get going as well. So I don't care what they decide. Let's just drop the flag and get back at it.
Okay, what if it goes back to dry? How long can the tires last? Do you have when the decision begins to be forced?
They won't probably go much more than 4 or 5 laps if a dry line develops.
Okay.
Great insight from Tommy right there. Now we understand more about what his strategy is for this race, because I don't know about you, Mark, but they keep saying this. He hasn't won this season. I don't know why.
I know, and I think David Hobbs even says, he's like, you don't want to be the champion and not win a race.
Yeah, because
you better win one.
We always know that those are the most,
But how is he in the playoffs? He hasn't won a race yet. How is he in the playoffs?
But I'll tell you what, Mark, during this entire red flag, I don't know about you, but after this race, I need to go and buy myself an Oldsmobile Aurora because, man, that's the car of the future. This whole red flag, I've just been bombarded with Oldsmobile Aurora ads. It's just, whew.
There are 2 Oldsmobiles in this race, actually. I know we said it's Chevy versus Ford, but there are 2 Oldsmobiles.
They honestly, those don't look like the most cutting edge versions of the Oldsmobile because, in my opinion, this is when cars look a lot like fish with the front ends. They just look like a fish.
They're coming back. I like cars.
It's just aerodynamic, I guess.
Exactly.
Technically. Well, the fish have to flow through the water, so that technically has aero properties underwater. Now, the cars are going to begin to make their way back onto the track, Mark. That's right. We're going to go from a red to a yellow race condition, but I'm talking about a serious wet conditions out there, Mark. This is going to be some wet weather racing because that track is dripping. I'm talking a wop, Mark. We all know what that means in racing.
Following a few caution flag laps, we get going with the green flag. And right off the start, there is huge spray, huge rooster tails coming off the back of the cars, but everyone's just jockeying for position. Dorsey Schrader makes a costly error as he just lights up the rear tires and spins heading up the hill towards turn 7. So he loses some spots. But you know what? Those rain tires got good treads. He's able to get out of the grass and get back on track pretty quickly. Meanwhile, up front, Ron Fellows had the lead, but he's just slipping backwards in these wet conditions. Jamie Gallus and Tommy Kendall are really starting to close the gap on him. And Borsed in 4th place, he's also on the move. He's running everybody down. He's setting the fastest times of the race.
Oh, it's no doubt Borsed is one of the fastest guys right now on the track. But, oh, no, Mark, the number 76, Jeremy Simmons. Oh, he could be beached as his Camaro has spun almost in the exact same area as Dorsey Schrader, except he ended up on the other side of the track, which meant he's in that gravel trap. He might be stuck, and that might bring out a full course yellow, Mark. But wait, hold on. Jerry, he's got it out. He's backed out of there, and he's going to go back on track. We stay green. Great effort right there by Mr. Jerry Simons.
And now the rain has stopped and a dry line is starting to form on the track. So this is a really cool part of racing where we're in mixed conditions. You're going to see guys with rain tires go back and forth across the track to try and find water. And you might think that's, well, why do they want to be in the water? Well, if you've ever driven with treaded tires like that on a dry race surface, they don't have any grip. They're incredibly slippery and they're going to burn off in 3 or 4 laps. So they want to keep those tires cool. So they're going all over the place to try and find rain. And Tommy Kendall makes a very brave move in turn 11 to get by Jamie Gallus for second. James, would you have taken a chance like that right under the bridge? I don't know if I would have.
I mean, you could have, but I don't know if I could have had the precision and accuracy of Tommy Kendall to know that I was exactly right where I needed to be on track to not dip off track. I mean, Mark, his tire is so close to being off the edge of the racing surface. I don't know how the heck Tommy Kendall has that precision and accuracy and the bravery to know that his car is going to stick in these conditions.
Well, he clearly knows that because he does it again on the next lap to get by Ron Fellows in exactly the same spot.
And the same move. Like, seriously, I feel like he's more trustworthy of his car in the wet conditions than he is in the dry. But then again, these Trans Am cars are always sliding all over the place. So what's the difference? Am I right?
Well, you know what? Time to check in with his crew chief, Dan Banks, the legendary man, myth, the legend, Dan Banks.
like a man possessed is he, and I suppose with rain tires on, he's doing all the adjustments with the roll bar.
Right, we already adjusted those. We did that on the yellow, got the rain tires on there. He's just racing as hard as he can. We need the points. I mean, we're trying to win the championship. We need to be in front of Ron.
And you need a win. You really do.
We do. We had the one there at the Road America, and we didn't end up winning that. That was unfortunate. We need a win today.
Well, right now they're in the best position they could be.
And thanks with Ford at this time. Kind of weird, man, not see him in a Chevy outfit. But, you know, we all got to start somewhere, right? So if you're not familiar with Dan Banks, he was the crew chief for Corvette Racing for like 20 years. So
sometimes, you know, that's what probably made him so good at Corvette, his hatred of Ford after going away. But anyways, Mark, track is drying, and it's drying out fast. So there's a decision that's going to come into play, because you can switch back to slick tires at any point. And that's where it's going to come down to the crew chief's decision. When do you feel like the conditions are at their best on track to swap over to slicks? So I don't know, Mark, what do you think?
Tire change can take a really long time. That's the thing. So if you get a yellow, maybe, but you're giving up all that track position. And even if you are way faster, are you going to have enough time to get by everybody? This is a really narrow track, not a lot of places to pass. So it would be a really tough decision, but you know what? You got to weigh the risks. Meanwhile, while we've been talking, Boris Said has gotten past a struggling Ron Fellows, who appears to have had a brief off-track excursion, and there's mud on the side of his car. Said is now up to third, and he's hunting down Jamie Gallus for second place.
That's going to be a battle, but something that's going to be a great battle that's brewing right now is Dorsey Schrader and Bryce Cobbs. The in-race reporter is going to be moving up to the 5th position. Dorsey, though, he's all over the track, and he's letting this championship kind of slip out of his conditions with this slick condition, Mark. He had a mathematical chance going into this event. I don't know, with this performance, he might be way over his head to try to win this championship in 1995.
It was a really not a great mathematical chance, though. I think he needed like 18 guys to finish in certain spots, but technically still alive, you know? So you're saying there's a chance,
You're
right?
saying there's a chance, exactly.
So the caution comes out during all this. Full course yellow is out for, unfortunately, our first train starter, Brian Till. He's stuck in the gravel trap. There's only 6 laps to go.
Mark, I love that, you know, earlier we see a shot of Till's car. You know, he's stuck there sitting in the gravel trap, yet Adams and Hobbs didn't even make a call, don't even make a comment about it. I don't know. Anyways.
James, the caution's out. We just talked about this. Are you coming in for slicks now?
Well,
6 laps to go.
6 laps to go, but here's the thing. Those laps are going to keep winding down. I don't think there's really enough time to even come from the back, even if enough drivers do come in and pit with me. So I'm going to stay out. I feel like with the dry line that's there and how worn out a lot of these wet weather tires can be for some of these drivers, I feel like they can make it last. It's just about who can really manage it during this last 3-lap run.
Yeah, we get some discussion. And then we hear that Tommy Kendall apparently can't talk to his team on the radio. They can hear him, but he can't. Sorry, he can hear them, but they can't hear him. And, you know, who knows what that discussion would have been. So they pretty much just have to stay out. Bryce Cobb, though, he makes the decision to change the slicks. He's going to give up that track position and see what happens. He's out of the championship fight. He's got nothing to lose. So he's going to make that change, and we'll see what happens. But all kind of discussion about this sort of goes away because the yellow takes a really long time. It takes a long time to get Brian Till's car out, and we're only going to have like 3 laps when we go back to green. So you're not going to have any time anyway. So pretty much everyone other than Bryce Cobb is going to stay on those really slippery wet weather tires. We go back to green with 3 to go, and Jamie Gallus, man, he wants to get this win. He goes to the outside in turn 1 at Road Atlanta. Doesn't work for him, though. Kendall shuts the door. And Gallus stays on Kendall's bumper throughout the final laps. It's a really good battle. They're both still trying to find moisture to keep those rain tires cool. Gallus has a drive of his life, but Tommy Kendall could not be denied. He will win his first race of the 1995 season, the Trans Am Road Atlanta Classic. James, let's go down to his elated crew chief, Dan Binks.
Huge celebration breaking out here. I tell you, I said it to you, and I know you've thought it a lot, Dan Binks. You had to win one.
Yeah, we just tried all year and just couldn't win one. We struggled. We had the fastest car at a bunch of places. I tell you, the kids stuck in there. We tried to get on the pole. You know, we didn't get that. We got second, trying to get some points. Kendall, he just dug deep and won this one. It's awesome for All Sport and Ford. Great deal.
I tell you what, you've been with Tom and you won some races along the way, but I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I suggest it might be the sweetest.
Well, maybe the sweetest. We've been a little dry spell here, and we're real sweet about this one. We really like that, and thanks a lot.
He couldn't talk to you, but I wonder how close were those tires. What would you think?
Oh, the tires are done, I'm sure. We were just trying to keep them pumped up so we didn't think they were bad. You know, he knows what it feels like, so he did an absolutely fantastic job.
Well, Tommy Kendall, with this man's help, takes a big step toward a title. I don't think it's wrapped.
Boy, I bet Dan feels super proud right now because, you know, he got Tommy Kendall the victory. Now he doesn't have to face those, hey, when are you going to win questions anymore? Because, you know what, Mark, they finally pulled off the victory. But unfortunately, for the Canadian pride in you, Ron Fellows, he ended up crashing and was sitting in the middle of the track, unfortunately, towards the end there. Kind of a hard way to end it because it's going to be pretty impossible for him as he goes into Sonoma to try to win that championship.
Yeah, I don't think Tommy Kendall clinched, but I think it's going to be very hard for him not to win the title.
Oh, yeah. So, it's an uphill battle for Ron Fellows for sure.
And I believe, now knowing what we know now, 25 years later, I believe Tommy Kendall wins the next 3 championships in a row, 4 in a row.
Just a straight tear in Trans Am at that time with Tommy Kendall. And I believe all that, too, was with Roush Racing as well, too.
With Roush Racing, driving that number 11 all-sport car. So Tommy Kendall driving for Roush. A lot of you probably don't even realize that if you're a NASCAR fan, that Roush had an amazing sports car program. Unreal. That's where they started. You know, they came to NASCAR later, and their Trans Am team at this time was just straight baller. Like, they were so good. Tommy Kendall was unbelievable, and it's still great to see Tommy involved in IMSA and racing with the what's that show they have?
Oh, the Torque Show. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, most people probably recognize Tommy Kendall as that personality. You know, that was something I remember him too, just doing a lot of those speed test drives and those talk shows on Speed Channel. He's been a very interesting face, but, you know, this is just a decade of dominance at this point for Roush with their Trans Am program. Like you said, Mark, they've been so successful in sports car racing. The roots are in sports car racing. They helped redefine a lot of things in that era of racing. And obviously they really stand out more so in NASCAR now, but just to kind of like look back at this race and this time period and see just how competitive it was and all the different teams and drivers, and of course the sponsors. Such a vibrant time for Trans Am racing.
Yeah, it's a really cool era, you know, like teams like Greg Pickett Racing and Tom Gloy, and also American Equipment Manufacturing Racing, who went on to have a Busch Series team and a Cup Series team with David Green with the Caterpillar car, you know, bringing Caterpillar into NASCAR. That was one I didn't put those things together until we watched this race, you know? So, and they're also a longtime sponsor of Ron Fellows, AER. So, you know, Ron went on to be obviously like a forever amazing Chevrolet factory driver, driving for the Corvette program. And just seeing where a lot of guys in this race, either guys like Dorsey Schrader, or they're sort of near the end of their careers and using Trans Am to kind of ride into the sunset. And then guys like Fellows that were using it as the next stop in their career to get to the next thing. Same thing with guys like, you know, Tommy Kendall had done a lot. He'd done GTP racing. He'd done so many different types of racing. And it's just cool to see all these different guys, especially Boris said, seeing what he did afterwards. So it's a really cool series, man. Like it's great to look back on this sort of golden era of Trans Am, although they refer to their golden era as the early 70s. I refer to the mid 1990s as Trans Am's golden era. For me, it is anyway. Great racing. Any of the races that are online from that era, go check them out. They are awesome. Trans Am themselves actually uploaded this race to YouTube, so you can check it out. We watched a longer version with all the commercials and the 1 hour paddock preview at the beginning. So, James, I think the next step for us to do before we sign off is to review this race. We have to talk about what did we learn and what did we like. So, James, why don't you go first?
Well, first off, I learned that No Fear, Sobe, and all these other things were such a integral part, obviously, in not only Brian Simos's career, but Boris Said, and all these other drivers, Ernie Irvin, Dorsey Schrader, all the friends of things that just kind of spewed from that. That was interesting. Really got to get some perspective on what Road Atlanta is. You know, we've seen it so many times with its dual pit lanes and its, you know, poshness, and to see how gritty and raw it was and more natural and kind of manicured yet unrefined. And of course, just to you know, watch some Trans Am racing in a time period when it was just really big. You know, it's nice to see Trans Am racing now, because I think something that reminded me as you recommended this podcast was looking at literally the coincidence of the actual Trans Am Road Atlanta races and watching some clips from there and just kind of seeing the modern day Trans Am cars there. It was nice to kind of get to see both and to see how the series is still going, and it's still great, and it's a good series. It's starting to get global reach now with you know, a series in Australia, and it's just a very affordable series that a lot of people can get into, and it's always been that kind of jump starter series, but it's good to see, like, you have manufacturer support from Dodge, and good to see the representation from Ford and Chevy as well.
Yeah, and like you said, they're coming back to Canada next year. They're going to run at Mosport, CTMP. So they're coming back up there, which is awesome. So it's a really cool series. Like I said, like when we were on the IMSA train last year, I think I got to see them at Detroit. I think they were on the bill with IndyCar, and those cars are so loud, man. Like, it's awesome when you hear.
They're just like the most raw versions of a race car, because they're just like these two-frame cars with these bodies on them. And you got this big motor, and the header's just coming out the side, fire-breathing dragons, shaking the ground even as they just idle. They're just something to behold, and then to see it. And from what I've heard from driving them, it's just such a technical car to drive because of how much power you have and how you have to really work the power, but you also have such a big tire too. So you have a lot of grip, but you also have a lot of power. But Mark, man, if I got to rate this race, got to give it a good 8. 8 sounds good for me, because you got some technical problems with the broadcast not giving us an in-car. It's kind of a shame. There was some graphic problems at one point. Of course, there are all technical issues due to the weather probably, but, you know, it was really great to hear the legendary David Hobbs on this broadcast. He always makes any kind of sports car broadcast. Any broadcast, he makes it. So that was a bonus too. So it raises it up. And also, the cool-looking cars, as I showcased a little earlier on the TV, the Dorsey Schrader, that beautiful number 12 Ray Bestis car. Ooh, it just gets me every time, that Mustang, Mark. What about you?
Yeah, so it would have been a 9 if Ron Fellows had won, but Tommy Kendall won. So, like, I don't have anything against Tommy Kendall, but it's like Ron Fellows didn't win. So, but like you said, yeah, there's no graphics. So we had no idea when we're making our notes what lap it was. You just kind of got to go with the flow. So 1995 and no graphics. I don't know how I feel about that. But you know what? It's the Prime Sports Network. It's not ESPN. So David Hobbs definitely gives it a bonus. Like you said, I loved listening to David Hobbs on the Speed Channel's broadcasts of F1 throughout my childhood with Bob Varsha. That was amazing. They did a great job. So anything with David Hobbs is great. The thing with this broadcast, though, is the paddock preview, man. The paddock preview was amazing. It was really good to get insight of almost every car in the field. So it's going to gain points there. I am going to give it an 8.5. I'm going to best you with by half a point. So wow. 8.5. So the average is 8.25 for this race, the 1995 Trans Am Road Atlanta Classic.
And here I was going to give it an 8.3, but oh well. Anyways.
8.3 ounces in every Red Bull.
Exactly. Right. That's probably going to wrap it up for us this week. A shorter podcast, but then it's a shorter race because it's Trans Am and we're sprint racing, and this is a sprint version of a podcast. So, Mark, great suggestion this week. Really appreciated that. That was a really good race. We'll see what we have coming up in the pipeline for our next episode, but probably will be a little bit. We'll take a nice little Christmas break.
Yeah, we're going to mention that. We're going to take a few weeks off. We'll be back in January. We're getting busy near the Christmas time to, we're going to just take some skill. Whatever you're celebrating this holiday season, be sure you do it safely. And you know, enjoy yourself, have a great time, connect with people virtually, and yeah, get some good presents. That's the big thing, you know, and give good presents. It's all about giving.
Yeah, because giving is as good as receiving. It all works hand in hand. But anyways, Mark, it was great. A good race to watch. Hope you are safe, my man. Hope everybody else out there is safe. Hope everyone is, they're feeling achy or tired in their muscles or joints. They're hitting those spots.
Hit me up and I might send you some Blue Emu.
Yeah, tweet Mark something silly. He might send you some Blue Emu. Tweet him something silly you're doing that's, you know, injuring yourself, and then he'll give you Blue Emu like it's.
And stop smelling these recovery baths, man. They smell amazing. It's like my whole office smells like menthol. It's great. I'm not even achy and I want to go have a bath.
Now, if only these podcasts gave us like the technology for like some kind of smell-o-vision. Like imagine if Spotify or like Google Play or Apple Podcasts was spending the money on that. We want to bring the smells in the podcast as well.
I doubt our podcast would be high in line for the smell-o-vision, but yeah. Especially when most of Blue Emu's products are completely odorless. So
because you know what, it works fast, and you know what, you won't stink because it doesn't smell like anything.
Well, we're gonna sign off. Everyone have a joyous and safe and wonderful holiday season. We will see you in 2021.